What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next I've got about a $5,500 unboxing, but then I'm also going to go over 10 Bronze Age X-Men keys and identify which ones look undervalued right now. So stay tuned. Alright, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So, like I said, I've got about a $5,500 unboxing, just 2 books, and then I'm going to go over 10 Bronze Age X-Men keys and which ones look undervalued right now. Now, if you can guess, like I've done with my prior videos, that means one of the books in here is a Bronze Age X-Men key. It's a book that I had been watching for quite a while to upgrade my copy. And because prices, earlier this year, it's the way it was. Prices went up really fast for a lot of books. Ones that went up a lot and very early on were X-Men. Across the board, silver, bronze, everything, but bronze went up quite a bit. And so I remember when it was happening, I was telling myself, I don't want to pay that much for a mid-grade copy of this book. And so I had bought a lower grade copy last year, something like that. But it was a really nice lower grade copy. It presented really well because it was a detached cover and kind of like some water damage, but it was largely hidden. And so looked really nice for the grade. But finally, prices had started to come down on these books to where I was comfortable picking them up. And if you've watched my prior videos that I've done similar to this, the target area that I've generally been looking is when prices start getting down into the about 30% or more down from where they've been at their peak. And that's just where on a lot of books I've started to see them turn back up or level off some, and so that's where I've been more comfortable getting back into these books. Now, like I said, there's just 2 books in here, everything packaged really well, and I followed one of my rules I talked about in one of my prior videos about upgrading books. The instant I bought this book, I've listed my lower grade copy for sale, and I've actually already sold that lower grade copy. So that was one of the recommendations I had. If you're looking to upgrade books, that what I like to do is I don't like to sell my copy of that book until I have the next copy in hand, because you never know what's going to happen. If there's going to be some announcement, some big price spike, and then all of a sudden you might sell your book, but now you're short $500, $1,000 more, dollars to get that next copy. And so I don't like to sell my copy until I have the next one. And I said, I think in the video I said have it in hand, but I mean I had bought it. It was mine. So now there are 2 books in here, like I said. The other one is actually a key that I talked about in a prior video, and this is Marvel Spotlight number 2, which is the first appearance of Werewolf by Night. And it's a 5.5. It's a nice presenting copy for a 5.5. I'll definitely take I always do that whenever I get these books. I take a close look at them. The thing you need to be really cautious of with this one is just the spine. It is a square bound book. You can see it's a thicker book, and so they tend to have a lot of damage along the spine. This one really doesn't, so I'm not quite sure why it got the 5.5. Ah, there we go. Okay, so you can see, here we go. Need a reflection. There we go. All right, so you see that bend along the center of the book, kind of like a subscription crease, but it's not a subscription. I don't believe this book would have ever come as a subscription crease, but I mean that looks like something that could be. I feel like that could be cleaned up. I mean, so there's some little bends in this one. You see those, and a couple that are coming at an angle right here, because this book looks really nice. I mean, there's this crease down in the corner, but there is 0 spine splitting on this book, which is pretty uncommon for this one. You usually have some spine splitting on this book. So this one may be worthwhile to take a look at it, at cracking out to see if that can be taken care of, if that can be pressed, because that could really help the grade on this book. So that's the first one. That is clearly not the book that gets it up into the $5,000 range. So the second book is a big book. This was one that like I said, I've been watching it. I wanted a copy that looked at least as nice as my other one. I had a 2.0, but it presented really, really well. And this one does. This one finally gets up to where it presents about as well or better than the 2.0. And that is Giant Size X-Men #1. And so this is the first appearance of a bunch of characters, the big ones being Colossus and Nightcrawler and Storm. You've also got the first appearance of Thunderbird, but it doesn't really matter. But then you've also got what's considered the second full appearance of Wolverine. And so you've got the cameo in 180, first full in 181, second cameo in 182, and then second full in Giant Size X-Men #1. So tons of reasons why this is a very important book, a big book. And it had gotten so expensive earlier this year, and I didn't want to spend as much as they cost for just like kind of like a lower mid-grade copy. So I did finally feel like prices have gotten down to where I was comfortable picking up a copy of this book. And this one I felt looked pretty nice. It was a good price for a 7.5. Happy to add this book to my keepers list of books, because the big X-Men keys like that, I know that it's probably going to be a little while till we actually see the X-Men or the mutants in the MCU, but they are eventually going to be there. I mean, they're part of Marvel, part of the MCU, Disney again. There's no question they're going to use them and that they're going to be in that universe at some point. Now, with that, so this is a very big Bronze Age X-Men key. And so what I thought I would do is I would go over 10 Bronze Age X-Men keys, not all from the X-Men run. Obviously, this isn't technically the X-Men run either, but I'll take a look at what the prices were a year ago, their peak, and then I'll look at where they are now, so we can kind of see how those books have moved, if they're some that look more affordable or more undervalued than others that have gotten a better discount than others. Now, the other thing that's nice about Bronze Age books is that they sell a lot more often. There's a lot more copies out there, so getting the pricing data is a little bit easier. So with that, I'm going to start with #1, and that's Giant Size X-Men #1. And like I just said, the reason I have this one on the list is it's the first appearance of the new X-Men, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler. This is the team that brought the X-Men back from the brink of basically being canceled. That title was completely doing reruns, reissues of old books from the Silver Age. And so when this group of characters was introduced, they were then added to X-Men '94, the first time that they were in the X-Men title, and it just reinvigorated that title, made it extremely popular again. Now, the grade that I looked at, what I tried to look at for each of these books is the most common grade. The most common grade that's on the CGC census for that book, and that is a CGC 8.5. Price a year ago for an 8.5 was $3,300. The record from March 26th was $9,300. And now, that was a little earlier than what we saw with a lot of the other books. A lot of books we saw peak in the May, June timeframe, but X-Men on average tended to be a little bit earlier, but $9,300. So that's what I'm talking about, how the prices just went really, really high. Now, the current price, $6,400 for that 8.5. So it's still up 94% from where it was this time last year, but it is down 31% from its peak. And you can tell I picked up a book. I think that it's a good buy right now, so that is a reason why I picked that one up. Now, one thing I'll also do at the end of the video is, like I've done in my prior ones, I'll have a chart where I compare all the books next to each other so we can really see which ones look like they're the best value. All right, now #2. And this is how I said I'm moving away from not just the X-Men title, but focusing on X-Men characters. And this is Incredible Hulk #180. Now, this is the first time that you see Wolverine in comics. It's considered his first cameo. He appears on the last page. Then in 181, it's basically the full issue with him and the Hulk. Now, the grade I looked at, again, was a CGC 8.5. It is the most common grade. Price a year ago was $1,100. The record on May 13th was $4,200. It had gone up almost 300%. Now, the current price, for an 8.5 is $2,500. So it is up 127% from where it was this time last year, but it's down 40% from its peak. And I had even talked about this book and Hulk 181 when I was on my buddy Jake and Jesus's podcast, the Spec podcast, how I feel like with that book coming down in price and 181 coming down in price, you could just basically, if you really wanted to look for an investment, just buy up pretty much every copy that you see of 180 and 181 that are around market, and just wait until the MCU announces that character, because those books are just going to spike like crazy all over again. All right, now number 3, and if I did Hulk 180, I've got Hulk 181. And now this is the first full appearance of Wolverine. This is really the book that everybody wants. This is the book that has him right on the cover, that iconic cover of him battling the Hulk. And it is one of the most valuable Bronze Age books. Not the most valuable unless you count the single 9.9 that's out there. That would probably command the most for any Bronze Age book that exists. But it's definitely the Bronze Age book that sells the most in terms of total value. Just this book sells all the time. Now, the most common grade that I looked at was a CGC 8.0. Now, the price a year ago was $4,300. So you can see quite a bit more expensive than Hulk 180. The record on May 9th was $10,800. So it didn't move up as much as that Hulk 180 did. And part of that tends to be maybe that it's a little more expensive. It's not going to move quite as much. But its current price, $7,000, with a recent low of $5,798 on October 1st, but a sale of $7,200 on November 21st. But there have been multiple sales around that $7,000 mark. So this puts it up only 63% from this time last year, down 35% from its peak. That is a very good looking book to go after right now. I would definitely say Hulk 181 being up less than 100%, only 63% for one of the most in-demand books out there, down 35% from that peak. Definitely one that I am keeping my eye on. I had almost bought a 9.0 last weekend or 2 weeks ago. There was a sale on Instagram, but I'm in the middle of kind of like selling books to make sure I have all the capital to cover taxes and that kind of thing. And so I decided it was not the right time to spend that kind of money on a comic, and so I passed on it. I am probably going to be kicking myself for it, but I am still definitely watching this book to see if it's one that I can ultimately pick up to upgrade my copy, because I have an 8.0, but it's an 8.0 qualified, and so it would be nice to get a universal or blue label copy of that book. All right, now number 4, and I mentioned this book a little earlier. This is XMen number 94. And this is the first appearance of the new X-Men team in the X-Men title. So the first time after they're in Giant Size X-Men number 1. And like I mentioned earlier, this is really the book that saved the X-Men title. Now, the grade that I looked at, most common grade, was a CGC 7.5. Price a year ago, just $575. I have felt like this book has been one of the most undervalued books in the past. Now, it hit a record of $2,026 on April 11th, so again, up almost 300%. Current price is about $1,200. It's come back quite a bit, so it's up 109% from where it was this time last year, down 41% from its high. So definitely another book that I have been looking at. It's still up maybe a little more than I'd like to see compared to some of the other books that are on this list, but it has come down quite a bit, and it's just, I feel like it's always been so undervalued that I think that there's a good chance that that book will come back up again. All right, now number 5. This is X-Men number 101, one of my favorite books, one of my favorite covers of all time, any age. This is the first appearance of the Phoenix, just one of the most critical, important characters for the X-Men during those Bronze Age years. Has appeared in multiple bad X-Men movies. They never seem to do that character right. They have tried a bunch of times, always turns out pretty crappy. So while it would be nice if the MCU tackled that character, tried to do them, a little more justice, I don't really expect it because we've already seen that character in so many movies. So I don't really think that that's one that's going to get a big push from the MCU other than a rising tides, lifts all boats kind of situation, but it is one of my favorite covers of all time, just an iconic cover, great character. Now the grade that I looked at, the most common grade is a CGC 9.0. Price a year ago was $600. The record it hit on July 3rd was $1,349. Current price just $900. So it's up just 50% from this time last year, and given what we've seen with other big XMen keys, that is not much at all. That is a pretty low performer in comparison, and it is down still 33% from that peak. And so this really is one of my favorite books. I think it is a big in-demand book for a lot of collectors out there. So again, another one I'm really looking at being up only 50% and down 33% from that peak. Right now, number 6, this is XMen number 109. And this is the first appearance of Weapon Alpha. And there have been rumors that we're going to see Alpha Flight, and then ultimately that means you would see Weapon Alpha as well at some point, somehow in the MCU. It's also got a cover of him punching Wolverine, and so that just makes it a fun in-demand cover as well. The grade I looked at, you can see as we're getting later on, the grades get higher and higher for the most common graded book. And the most common grade is a CGC 9.4, and the price a year ago just $275. The record it hit on May 8th was $890, and it's currently at $550. So it's up 100% from last year, down 38% from its peak. I think it has the potential as a spec book, but I don't really know for sure if that's a character that they're ultimately going to be using or not, so it's hard to say if this is one that's worth going after right now or if it might drop a little bit more. Right now, number 7, and this is basically an extension to the last book, and this is XMen number 120. And this is the first cameo appearance of Alpha Flight. Again, the most common grade is a 9.4. Price a year ago, also $275. The record, $900 on July 15th, and the current price, $550. So it's almost identical to XMen 109. The prices have been all over the place recently, anywhere from $480 to $850 within the last month, but they've generally been on the lower end, and that's why I priced it at $550. The last 6 sales, for example, were $499, $605, $480, $482. Then there was that $850 and a $710. So they've been trending lower, closer to that $500 mark. So that's why I've got it at $550. So just like the last book, up 100%, down 39% from its peak. And from what I just said with those recent sales, definitely a book that you can watch and likely find a pretty good price. Not one that you need to really pay up for. So because I went over XMen 120, the next one I'm going to talk about, number 8, is XMen 121. Now this is the first full appearance of Alpha Flight. And the one thing that's a big difference with this book versus like Hulk 180 and 181 is that in this case, XMen 120 is worth more than 121, whereas with Hulk 180 and 181, Hulk 180 is worth less than 181. And so it's just kind of the whims of the market, which one people decide is the more valuable book. But for this one, even though the most common grade is a 9.6, the one I looked at was a 9.4, just so you could see that direct comparison between XMen 120 and 121. And the 9.4 price a year ago was $185, so you can see compared to the $275 for 120. The record was $600 on August 20th, and the current price is $400. So again, current price of 120 is $550, current price of 121 is $400. So definitely a more affordable book. So again, prices have kind of been all over the place with this one, anywhere from $330 to $482 in the last month. But that's why I priced it pretty close to the middle with this, about $400. It's up 116% from this time last year, down 33% from its peak. So it's performed very similar to the other 2 books, but it is more affordable. So definitely if you want to invest in Alpha Flight, that group, then this would be the more affordable option to go after. All right, now number 9. This is one of my favorite books from this run. This is XMen number 129. Now this is a multi-key first appearance of fan favorite characters Kitty Pryde and Emma Frost, also the first appearance of Sebastian Shaw and the Hellfire Club. And I know none of them are on the cover. That's unfortunate, but it's still got a pretty cool Colossus cover. Now the grade I looked at, most common grade, was a 9.6. Price a year ago was $475. The record on June 6th was $2,800. This book was crazy. This book went up almost 500% at one point earlier this year, probably up more than any other book, really big key book that I looked at. And the current price, $1,100. So it's come down quite a bit from there, but it is still up 132% from where it was last year, down 60% from that high. So like I said, it went up a ton. I mean, there were some huge sales for 9/8, like I think a newsstand sold for, if I remember, it was like 13 or 14,000, and a 9/8, a direct sold for like 10,000 or 11,000. And so that book, for whatever reason, just went absolutely crazy. But it has come back down to earth some, but still up quite a bit from where it was. But it's a big multi-key, not a bad book to own, but it is still up quite a bit. Maybe worth watching to see if it drops even a little more. But I don't know if this one will drop much more. I think it has come down significantly. So if you're looking to get a copy of this book, now might be a decent time to pick one up. All right, now the last book, and then I'm gonna put up the chart where we compare all of them, see which ones really look undervalued. Number 10 is X-Men number 130. Now, this is the first appearance of the Dazzler. I would say not quite on the level of the other characters that I talked about as the keys for X-Men in this video, but there have been rumors that the Dazzler is going to somehow appear in the MCU. So I think it is a potential book that is worthwhile looking into getting. It's also just the epitome of 80s characters. You know, it's just like this character that is basically disco personified, I guess. But so got the grade I looked at was a CGC 9.6. This is the most common grade. Price a year ago was $250. The record on June 6th was $899. Its current price is $600. So it is up 140% from where it was this time last year, down 33% from its peak. So given that this one is still up as much as it is, probably not a book that I would really be looking to pick up at the moment, just because it's also just not as popular of a character. All right, so now, like I've done in my prior videos, I'm going to put up a chart of all of these books next to each other, so you can see a comparison of all these books to see which ones really look like they're undervalued right now. And so I picked out 3 of them, but I'll be honest, I could almost highlight every book on this list based on the criteria that I normally use, where I'm looking for books that are down around 30% or more, and every single book that's on this list is down 30% or more. And that's what we saw with Bronze Age X-Men. It spiked so much, and so it's not unexpected that we saw this type of pullback in these books. But I did pick out 3 that I felt were more undervalued than the others. And the first one, Giant Size X-Men number 1. You know, this is part of the reason why I started going after this book. I still feel like this book is significantly undervalued for what it is. And seeing that this is one of the 3 books, just 3 on this list, that are up less than 100% from this time last year. Granted, it's 94%, it's close, but one of the 3 that's up less than 100%, and the fact that it's probably the second biggest key that's on this list, I feel like this is one that is definitely worth going after now if you are looking to pick up copies of this book, because the instant they announce anything with the X-Men, you're going to see jumps in prices in books like this. Because the other good thing about this one is this is a more, I would call it like a generic key, where this is one that's going to go up when you have some type of general X-Men announcement. A lot of the other ones are very specific character keys, and so that's the difference with a book like this and something like X-Men number 1, where it's just that generic big X-Men key. And so when you have that type of announcement with those characters, you'll see those books move up. Whereas if you have something like Alpha Flight, if you don't actually have Alpha Flight announced to appear in something, you're probably not going to see a lot of movement in that book. Now, the second one is Incredible Hulk number 181. And to me, this was probably the most surprising result when I went through this, because I don't know what the results are going to be when I start looking at these numbers. I really have no idea until it's done, and so it's surprising to me as well, interesting to me when I see these. And I was surprised to see that Hulk 181 was up only 63% from this time last year, given how big of a key that book is, because Wolverine, besides Spider-Man, is probably the second most popular, famous Marvel character that's out there. And to have that book be one of the big underperformers in comparison to these other books was just really surprising to me. So that is definitely a book that I am really looking for myself to upgrade my copy, and definitely one that I would recommend others if you are looking for a book. If you're looking to buy that book, it appears to be one that is very undervalued. Now, I can never guarantee that books won't go down more. That is always a possibility, so remember that whenever you're buying any of these books, if you're looking into buying any of these books. But Hulk 181, First Full Appearance Wolverine, really seems like an undervalued book right now. Now, the last one that I'm going to talk about is one of my favorite books. I also just upgraded my copy of this book, and I haven't had it come in yet. It's not here yet, but that's X-Men number 101. And this one was up less than every other book on this list, up only 50%. Part of that might be just because the expectation is that we won't actually see that character in the MCU, or if we do, it's going to be way, way off in the future because that character was used so much in the Fox version of the X-Men. But still, with all the big keys that I looked at, this one being up only 50% when almost every other book is up 100% or more, also being down 33% from its high, really look like a book to me that's undervalued. So just to me, the fact that it's one of the most iconic X-Men covers, it's one of the most important X-Men characters, especially for multiple years throughout all those storylines in those books, and it's up less than every other big Bronze Age X-Men key that I looked at, just felt like a really good time to actually pick up that book. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I was happy to get this upgraded copy of Giant Size X-Men number 1 for my collection, and hope maybe this helps you pick out some books if you were looking to pick up some Bronze Age X-Men keys or any of these keys, give you an idea where they stand compared to one another, which ones are undervalued and which ones maybe you could wait a little bit longer to see if they drop a little more. Well, if you did enjoy this video, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. I've got more videos over here if you'd like to watch some of my other videos, and the subscription button right here if you'd like to subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.